We live in a time where masculinity is shamed and men don't know what it means to be a man. As a pastor and counselor, I've spent the better part of my life equipping and training others. My goal with this show is to translate my hard-earned experience into tools and tactics to help you become stronger as a man. This is the BraveCo podcast. I'm your host, Jason Vellet. BraveCo men, welcome back to the BraveCo podcast. I'm really excited for this week's guest. I have a guy that actually went through the school of ministry several years ago, and his name's Jacob Coyne. Jacob Coyne's just such a cool dude. So he's a Christian content creator and also runs a mental health organization called Stay Here. And we're going to hear a lot about that. Jacob wrote a book this year and has just done so much work to help prevent suicide and bring suicide prevention and help people get out of anxiety, out of depression, and into living a whole healthy life. And so, Jacob, man, thank you so much for jumping on here, and thank you for the message that you're carrying around the nation. It's incredible.
Thanks, Jason. It's an honor to be here. I haven't seen you in so long, so it's good to see you.
Thanks, man. Man, hey, tell me a little bit about where you grew up and how you got saved. And then I really want to get to, like, how did you get into suicide prevention and becoming a Christian content creator and all those flashy things that you're now known for?
Let's do it. I grew up in Tacoma, Washington. It's just south of Seattle. And we pride ourselves of being the cooler city, even though we're a lot smaller and probably not better than Seattle. But that's where I was born and raised. And I grew up in a, somewhat normal, like, Christian home where, we pray before our meals, and I make sure you go to church on Christmas and Easter.
Yeah.
But, when I was in high school, I just fell into rebellion. And so did my parents.
Wow.
My parents were making a ton of money, being mortgage brokers and stuff like that, right before the big crash in 2008. So I think our family just was full of sin and all sorts of stuff going on, rebellion. And my dad actually made the first move to really follow Jesus.
Wow.
So he was desperate to heal his own heart, to save the marriage. They were fighting all the time. So he went to a men's Bible study. It was an all men's Bible study. And he got back, and I'm playing video games with my brother. I'm playing like Halo 2 or Halo 3 or Call of Duty or something like that. And when he walks into the downstairs, he looks different. Like, he physically looks so clean and so holy, so whole. I'd never seen my dad like that before.
Wow.
So I had, a lot of darkness in my life that I was hiding from my parents. So when he walked into the room, it was like the darkness inside of me had to come out. So I literally said, "Dad, get away from me.
Really?
What is going on with you? What is going on with you?" And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Dad, what is wrong with you? Tell me." And then tears started to come out, and I said, "Help me." And he told me and my brother what happened to him. He got delivered. He got filled with the Holy Spirit, gave his life completely to Jesus at this men's Bible study. And he said, "You guys need the same thing." And I just told my dad all the stuff I was doing over the weekends, sneaking out, partying, doing the whole teenage thing. And I said, "I need what you have." So my dad took my brother and I the next week, and we got, same thing happened to us, delivered, baptized in the Holy Spirit, called by God. And I've been following Jesus ever since. My brother and I got the same encounter with God on the same day. And my brother's a pastor in Dallas, Texas at Gateway Church. And we've been in ministry ever since that happened. So that's kind of my story. And how in the world did I get into suicide prevention? Why did we start Stay Here? That's like the farthest thing to what I wanted to do. I did not ever plan on doing a ministry, starting a ministry like this or anything like that. I thought I was going to be a pastor. That's the whole track that my wife and I were on. We were going to be pastors of a campus in Tacoma. And then maybe we would take over the big mega ship church. When we're 40, 50 years old, that was the whole track for us. But unfortunately, my wife and I have just been surrounded with grief and trauma all around us.
Wow.
My uncle took his life. He died by suicide in 2015. And that was heartbreaking for our whole family. I miss him every day. He was a larger than life type of guy. His name is Greg Sweet, and he had 4 daughters. And I have 4 daughters now. So I just think about him all the time. Like, what would Greg do? So he died in 2015. And then when I was a youth pastor, I lost 2 students to suicide that were in my youth ministry. And I have a stepbrother named Tucker who died by a heroin overdose.
Wow.
And then the last one for me was my friend Jared Wilson, who was a pastor at Greg Laurie's church, Harvest OC. He died by suicide on World Suicide Prevention Day in 2019.
No way.
And for me, like, when that happened, that was it for me. Like, that was the last straw. I was like, that's enough. There's been too many deaths by suicide, too much of this. This is not normal. This is not okay. And Jared's not the only pastor I know that's died by suicide. There's been multiple pastors.
Yeah.
When pastors are ending their lives and leaving their wives and children behind, you know something's wrong in our country. Something is terribly wrong.
Yeah.
So I started researching as much as I could about suicide, self-harm, depression, and anxiety. It's not something that I really ever experienced, so I really had to understand it, research it. How does this take place in someone's life? Is there a way to prevent it? And it was heartbreaking when I did this research because, number one, I learned that the church, man, is so far behind in understanding suicide and mental illness.
Yeah.
And we could do so much better. And then number 2, it's so easy to prevent suicide. In fact, statistically, suicide is the easiest death to prevent. But the big, bomb that went off for me was I had recurring dreams about Jared Wilson before he ended his life. But I didn't want to ask him about these dreams I was having because I thought I would make things worse. I don't know, whoever's listening, if you've ever experienced that before, maybe you think if I ask someone a hard question, they're going to avoid me and things are just going to get worse. But the truth is, when you bring up these topics in a safe place, in a safe setting, you open the door to healing because God can't heal the things that we hide. We have to have spaces to be able to confess the sin that we're dealing with, or the depression or the pain, the trauma that we're dealing with in secret. And God gave me a couple dreams about Jared. They were recurring dreams. I never asked him about it. I don't carry shame thinking, man, I could have saved everything. But I think it was just a moment for me to really realize how many people around the world are hearing from God about somebody else to save their life. What if we started an organization to teach people how to say yes to that still small voice, how to say yes to that whisper, and actually save a life? So that's
kind of
a
powerful
long answer to how we started Stay Here, why we started it, and kind of where I came from.
Man, that's powerful. Growing up in the church, my whole life, I've talked about this a lot, even on the podcast, but we didn't talk a lot about emotional health growing up. We talked a ton about spiritual health. And you're right that the church has been so far behind. And honestly, if I can be really honest, I just feel like the world has been so far behind. Because when I look at even the topic of trauma hasn't really gained popularity until like the last 10 years in society. I mean, trauma is something that hasn't been talked about hardly at all. And I had a guy on recently. His name is Jeremy, and he was in the military, and he does a lot of the same type of work. He's helping guys in the military, work through trauma and because I can't remember how often it is, but for the military, the amount of suicides that are happening is like astronomical as well. And but the truth is like, man, the military's been behind when it comes to trauma and suicide, and our world really has been. And so I really do. I love what you're doing. And we have to talk about the things that we don't want to talk about. We have to find a way to open up the conversation around what's really going on inside of you. But there is such a barrier, and there's so much shame for men. I know that women, struggle with the same thing, but because the BraveCo podcast, we talk to men mostly, and there is so much shame for a man to open up and to say, "I'm not doing well. I'm depressed. I'm lonely. I'm isolated. I feel like a loser. I want to quit. I don't know how to deal with my emotions." Like, there's so much shame around it. Can you unpack a little bit around, like, why do you think that there's so many suicides today? Where do you think that's coming from? And then we're going to get into some about, how to address it.
Yeah. I think there's so many suicides today. My opinion might be a little bit different than what you might read from like the New York Times or something like that. But, I read an amazing book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl, yes.
He survived the Holocaust, and he has a different type of therapy where, instead of just doing introspective therapy for the rest of your life, trying to just find every single root, every single issue, he was more about give someone a purpose to live for, and they'll live. And I think that's actually one of the biggest reasons why we're seeing so many suicides and so many men struggle with their mental health, and they're not able to even speak about it, is because many people just feel purposeless. We're just wanderers. We're wandering around trying to figure out what's the meaning of life? What's our purpose in life? Why am I here? And without a purpose to live for, something to wake up to every single morning that you look forward to living for, you're going to want to die.
Yeah.
That's what the Bible says. Without vision, the people perish. Without purpose, we perish. So giving someone something to live for is so important. That's one of the big messages we share at Stay Here is, if you don't want to stay for your family, stay for yourself, because there's so much more life for you to live. You've got to discover it. You've got to figure out why you're here. But God does have an incredible plan for your life. You don't want to miss that plan. You're not a mistake.
Have you dug down deeper into why are people purposeless? Why are so many people filled with purposelessness?
I think in our country, I think it's kind of just the way that the whole system is built up. I mean, we have to just kind of fit in a peg hole. It's like I feel a little bit different, and I'm very blessed to be able to do what I do for a living. But many of my friends, many people that I know, they're just trying to provide for their family. They're trying to just find a job, provide for their family, and they're clocking in 9 to 5, collecting that paycheck, and it's hardly enough. And I think that most people know that that's what they're heading into. High schoolers know this is where I'm going. Like, I'm signing up to go to college, to live this boring life, this mundane life that I see my parents doing. And then I'm going to raise kids, and they're going to do that in this cycle again and again and again. I think that it's what this country is experiencing right now as a whole. It's just this difficult system of purposeless living, purposeless work. And I also think for women, I know this is more for men.
No, it's great.
But I think it's the ideologies that are taught for men and women. I mean, many kind of the culture, the language right now, the culture for women is being a mother is not enough of a purpose for you. Like, being a wife and a mother, taking care of your children, raising incredible children, that's not enough. You got to do more. So I think it's not just the lack of purpose. I think it's how difficult it seems to find your purpose, how far away you feel from it. I think a lot of people just give up. And I think another reason why there's so many suicides, I mean, just scientifically, is because we're seeing other people live out their purpose online, on social media, and we feel jealous. We don't feel good enough because of this, what we see on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We see all these happy people. And then we look at ourselves in the mirror when we turn the phone off. We see ourselves on that black screen, and we just see, I don't have that. I don't have that money. I don't have that job. I don't have that house. I'm not enough. I'm not providing for my family. And people start to dwindle and fall into depression and anxiety.
Yeah, I think that is so true. And I have maybe another layer or maybe another angle to add to it, because I think a lot of the issue when we're just talking to the everyday person is their foundation for emotional health. And most people don't understand their origin story. So how they were raised and how they were formed and how they were wired. And so basically, in my opinion, what happens is babies don't actually have the ability to regulate their emotions, right? So we regulate as children, as young children, through co-regulation. So I learn how to calm myself down by mom calming me down and by dad calming down, rocking me, and all those different things that help to form a healthy foundation in a child. And so if you grow up in a home where you had healthy attachments because you bonded well to your parents, what happens is you now have a way to regulate your emotions. You have a way to feel safe, to feel known, to feel cared for, and you're being wired, right? Your brain is being wired and programmed by your environment. It's actually it's the original design. Our original design wasn't that I would wire myself. The original design would be that your environment, this beautiful ecosystem that was set up, that's your first inheritance, right? Your first inheritance is your parents giving you this inheritance of belonging, unconditional love, confidence, belief, right? And positivity, all this stuff. But when you grow up in a home where that wasn't given to you, the opposite happens, right? Mom's stressed out, dad's at work all day. And now I'm in an environment where I have to figure out a coping mechanism to now regulate my emotions, because I don't have anyone to co-regulate to that calms me down. Actually, when I try to attach, it's just an anxious attachment, or it's I'm not met with peace and love and joy and happiness. I am met with chaos. And so what happens is when we're met with chaos, well, we have to figure out how to medicate. And so before we're even conscious, the challenge is all this stuff happens before you're even conscious that you're alive for most people. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, you're already getting this foundation of who you are in this world, how valuable you are, how safe you are. And most people get to the point where they don't feel safe. They don't feel valuable. They don't feel cared for, known, understood, not because mom and dad don't want to, but that's the product of living in a world that's so busy, so overwhelmed, so chaotic. And so I think a lot of people grow up very dysregulated, find addictions at an incredibly young age. Their brains get wired for addiction at a really, really young age before they're even aware of it. So addicted to video games, addicted to food, addicted to pornography. And then it doesn't take long before you feel so out of control that living a life feeling out of control, unregulated, is you can only do it for so long. And I think furthermore, the result of living a chaotic life is you never actually learn how to build real connections with people. Because you have so much armor on, right? Like the armor that saves you when you're a kid, it kills you when you're an adult. So kids armor up all the time because I can't actually protect myself from mom or dad. I can't control my environment. I'm pretty powerless in this world. And so we hide our emotions, we shield up. Well, when you become an adult, that armor keeps so much distance between me and the world around me that I never actually feel unconditionally loved, unconditionally known, really accepted. So now I spend so much time trying to find that acceptance, that sense of connection through my achievements, through my job, right? So I become a pastor, and I think when I'm a pastor, then I'm going to feel connected. I'm going to feel satisfied, right? You don't know connection or whatever, but you think it's really going to be the thing that satisfies me. Or when I make a lot of money, if I'm a powerful businessman, then I will feel in control of my life. But actually what happens is, because you never actually learned how to connect to people, you feel more empty every single level you go up. The deeper you go into success, you just find out at the end of the day, you're more hopeless, because the thing that you thought was going to solve this longing for connection, this longing for peace, this longing for a relationship doesn't actually satisfy it.
Yep.
And I found the same's true in the church is, people think that, and you'll have to follow me all the way down this road for a second. People think that getting saved is going to solve their problem, but it doesn't solve their problem, because they come to God the same exact way that they come to their family and the world. They come with this facade up, because I don't actually know how to let God love all of me, see all of me, heal all of me. And when we go back to, I think that understanding your origin story, and I think understanding the Creator's original design for us, when we're talking about mental health, emotional health, is wildly important. Because when you look at our original design, we were designed to walk through the garden completely naked, completely unhidden, where I'm not hiding from Eve, she's not hiding from me, and we're not hiding from God, right? There's full acceptance in there. But you see, when sin comes, the first thing that happens is shame is now brought to the surface. And now we have to hide from one another, and we have to hide from God. And now I'm living in a world that is full of torment, because there's things about me and things about you that are full of shame. And so I was just teaching this today, actually, and going back to, like, if you don't understand your origin story, and you don't understand God's origin, his original design for you, then you're constantly misdiagnosing the problem. And what you misdiagnose, you mistreat. And then we just end up in a world of people trying to solve an emotional health issue with some type of pill or some, and I've been on medication before. There's no shame around it. It's definitely can be helpful, but there's another level. And to me, on top of purpose, which I think you're right? So many people feel purposeless, but it's not just in doing something. It's in the connection piece of, I feel like I have a tribe to belong to, and I have people that I belong to. I am fully connected in this life. And that's what's bringing me tons of joy and peace and harmony. And so anyways, that's my thoughts on suicide. Is at least some of it is, I'm not an expert at all, but just in my work, what I've seen is so many people are so disconnected that they're desperately lonely.
Yes.
They're so lonely.
It's crazy how many people seem like they're connected, though. Like they appear to be connected. Like they show up to all the social things. They seem like they're so happy at all the things too, but they're just so far. And I think it's what you were saying earlier. Like they have this armor up that's invisible, and they do a really good job of faking it. And it takes somebody to really notice, like, there's got to be more behind that than what they're presenting and performing to me as.
Well, our strongest instinct is our instinct to survive, right? That's our number one instinct as human beings. It's how we ended up, not dying by whatever pterodactyls or is we have this instinct that says, be careful, you're vulnerable. You don't want to stay out in the cold too long. You got to make sure that you eat. You got to make sure that you secure the perimeter. And I think that we go back to like our primitive wiring to survive. And then on top of that, when we grow up so disconnected, or when we grow up with that mechanism, that survival mechanism always turned on, because I'm having to survive at home. I'm having to survive when I go to school. I'm being bullied. The
Yeah.
the truth is, like, I don't even blame people. They don't know how to do it. They
Yeah.
literally don't know how to come to a relationship without self-protection. It's like,
Right.
it's so incredibly foreign. It's like telling a fish to climb a tree.
Uh-huh.
It's like, I've never done that. I've never seen it. I didn't experience it. The only thing I experienced was my home life. And man, if home life wasn't amazing for you and it wasn't a good guide and wasn't a great, example of that, how the heck do you get to a place where you're able to take off the armor, invite people in, do real relationship when you have this thing that's been wired into you since the beginning of mankind, that was reinforced through your childhood, that's just screaming at you like, hey, you're not safe.
Mm.
You got to protect yourself. It's crazy, man.
Mm.
I Where do you start? Where do you start with somebody when they reach out to you and say, "Man, I'm suicidal. I'm struggling. I'm not doing well." Like, what's the first steps that you're taking people through?
Yeah. If it's someone that I know, like if we just refer people, if it's to our ministry, to our organization, we have a whole process. But if it's like someone that I know, um, just happened a couple of times, I'll meet with them immediately. Like, let's meet right now. Let's
Yeah.
talk right now. And then I'll just ask them if they're willing to tell me why. Just tell me the whole reason why you want to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Why do you want to do it? What are all the reasons? Have you told? Am I the first person you've told? Just let it all out. And um, every person that's talked to me about why they want to in their life end up not ending their life. They end up
Yeah.
canceling their suicide plans. Because it's the funniest thing. It's like when you finally confess these deep, dark things of why, maybe it's an affair, maybe it's something that happened to you as a child and you feel like it's going to ruin your marriage, or you're afraid to be a dad or whatever it may be,
Mm.
that I've seen so far in people, or it's just hidden stuff, hidden sin, other hidden traumas. When they finally tell me, it's like this, they could breathe. You see this new breath in their
Yeah.
lungs. The weight is off their shoulders because I'm looking at them with eyes of love. I don't look at them any different.
Yeah.
There's forgiveness that just enters the room, and there's mercy. And every single time the person says the same thing, it's like, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I can't believe I was thinking about taking my own life because of this. And I'm like, yeah, but it was real. What you felt was real, and it was so scary. But now that you let it out, let's continue to do that. It doesn't just end here. So the next step is, let's schedule some therapy
Mm.
together. Like let's
Yeah.
get you into a great therapist, great counselor. Let's meet with the pastors of this church. Let me continue to meet with you. And then for some people too, I'm like, when's the last time you've gone to the doctor? When's the last time you've gotten a
Yeah.
checkup? What's your daily habits like? Because some people think suicide, people are just suicidal or they're mentally ill because of a problem that happened in their life, a trauma, or
Yeah.
things just haven't gone well for them, or an abuse or whatever. But sometimes it's, you just don't take care of yourself. You
Yeah.
don't sleep. You don't exercise. You eat like crap.
Yep.
Stop doing that because it's making
It's
things so
true.
much worse. So for some people, I'm like, you should go to the doctor and get a checkup. Like, check your blood, check your levels, where you at. Then let's talk about your diet, your sleep, all that stuff. Because mental health it's a whole body thing. Even for myself, um, I did a 40-day fast. I started to see like
Wow.
this crazy breakthrough in ministry. It's like everywhere I would preach in 2020 and 2021, there was like, people were getting delivered from demons everywhere. Even mid sermon, I was just preaching and then people would start screaming and crazy stuff was happening. So with a couple of my friends, I said, let's do a 40-day fast. I'm going to eat nothing, just drink water and orange juice. And like, let's just pray for more of God, more of this, more. So I am totally struggling during this fast. I'm not doing okay. This was totally my idea. I don't think this was God's idea. And I had so much pride. I had to finish the fast. Totally
Uh,
scared my wife, scared my kids, lost so much weight. I had so many crazy days of like health issues with it. And after the fast, I had my first panic attacks after that fast.
yeah.
I experienced panic, anxiety, depression. I couldn't sleep well. And I went to the doctor. They wanted to prescribe me on medication for depression and anxiety. And I was like, what do I do? Like, I've never felt like this before. I think my life is over. I think it's over for me. Ministry, everything's done. I've got to help. I've got to save myself here. And the funniest thing is, it was so simple to get back to normal because I'm like, this is not normal. Like, how did I just feel this way? A lot of it was because of my diet. I messed my own body up because of the way I treated it with
Yep.
that fast. I shouldn't have done that long of a fast. My body wasn't ready for it. And it just took me in the meantime of me feeling that way, I let some stuff out. I met with some friends. I said, hey, here's some stuff that I've been going through. Here's some stuff that I've been dealing with. And I'm not going to take this medication here. I'm just going to eat good again. So I started to eat. It's when Liver King. It's before Liver King got got in trouble for his steroids. But I started to eat some meat a lot more, some beef liver and all that stuff.
Bro. You're so extreme.
I got healthy again. So all that to say is mental health and suicide prevention isn't just like, let's deal with this painful trauma in the past. It's let's get your entire self healthy with what you eat, what you're intaking, what your exercise is like. Let's deal with the whole person.
Bro, I love that. I love that approach. And yeah, it is such a whole body problem because your body and your soul and your spirit are all connected. It's very, very hard to disconnect one from the other. You can't do it really. And if you don't sleep well, pretty soon you feel hopeless, right? And that's that you go from a physical problem to an emotional problem. And when you don't sleep well and you feel hopeless, your connection with God's trash, and it just goes back and forth. And yeah, I love that. It's so crazy how much we are affected by our diet. We're affected by our sleep. We're affected by our exercise routines. It's one of the things in my life that I've really, really prioritized in the last couple of years is my sleep. And I mean, currently I go to bed at 8:30 every single night.
No way.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I have little kids, right? So I have 5 kids. I have 3 older kids, and then my youngest is a year and a half. And then my daughter is 3.5 years old. And honestly, we've had such a hard season. My wife's mother passed away in September. Yeah, thank you. And honestly, carrying the weight of watching her pass and going through all that stuff, and then getting up really early, because my kids, like this morning, my daughter was up at 5:45 a.m. And the truth is, like, if I don't go to bed at 8:30, finally fall asleep by 9 o'clock, then I don't actually get adequate sleep. If I stay up till 11 o'clock and she wakes up at 5:45, dude, then I pretty soon, really, honestly, I start feeling like trash, and I start getting hopeless, and I start getting afraid. Like, what if she doesn't sleep tonight? And, and it's just tons of anxiety. And so, man, I've been going to bed early for the last, I don't know, 4 months or 5 months. And I exercise a lot and eat well. And you just can't underestimate like the value of that. I'm on the same, same belief system too with the doctor. Like, my dad went through a real bout of depression, bad. He went through a nervous breakdown, probably 10 years ago. No, it was longer than that. It was like 15 years ago. Time goes by so fast.
Yeah, it does.
But what ended up happening is he was struggling with depression really, really bad, like on the couch, couldn't get off the couch. And come to find out, like his testosterone was so low. He was like so low in testosterone that, like life feels different when you have enough testosterone in your blood as a man, and when you have enough vitamin D, and when you eat well. And so anyways, yeah, I think a lot of people are struggling with stuff that they could solve simply by moving every day, simply by eating well. But I do think the other piece too is like when you get really hopeless. Have you heard this story, The Rat with Hope?
No.
You haven't?
No.
Gosh, dude. Okay. Yeah. You need to, because of what you do, you need to go like research this story and really, and like get it down and share it, because it'll be like a great opening to one of your messages someday.
Oh man.
Yeah, there was this scientist, I can't remember his name, but anyways, he was basically doing this experiment with rats where he'd put them in a bucket of circulating water and see how long they could survive for. And basically what would happen is the rats would get in the circulating bucket of water and they'd end up at the bottom. And within a very, very, very short amount of time, a couple minutes, the rat would die. And so what started to happen was when the rats would dive to the bottom, and before they would die, he would pull them out and rest them, right? And dry them off and like give them a rest, feed them or whatever. And then he'd put them back in the bucket of circulating water. And the craziest thing happens, right? So yeah, you should go read it, but it's called The Rat with Hope. What happens is when he puts the rat back in the circulating water, the rat doesn't swim for minutes. It doesn't even swim for hours. Dude, they can swim for days.
What?
Yes. And his conclusion is the rat was energized through hope. Somehow, some way, if I keep swimming, that crazy hand will reach down and grab me and save me. Huh. The rat would literally swim. It's like 60 something hours the rats could swim for. They would swim for days. Yes. And the truth is, like, we are no different. We are that rat, right? Have you heard of, the other study that would be good for you is the rat park experiment. Have you heard of the rat park experiment?
No. Is another rat one?
Yeah, rat. Well, they do so much study on rats. So in the 1960s, I'm going to tie these two things together. In the 1960s, they were doing all kinds of studies on rats to find out about addiction and how addictive are drugs, right? And so they put rats in cages with two different water bottles. They put a rat in a cage alone with two different water bottles. The first water bottle was just pure water. The next water bottle was laced with drugs. And every single time, the rat would overdose and die. 100% of the time, the rat would kill himself. Every time. So in the 70s, like that was the end of their study. In the 60s, they went, wow, drugs are so addictive that once you start doing drugs, you can't stop because drugs have these hooks in them. That's what they concluded, right? But then a guy came along in the 70s and he started looking at that study and he went, I wonder if that's accurate. So what he did is he built this rat park where he put all these rats in a cage together, and he'd put balls in there and wheels in there. And then he put those same two water bottles. Well, the rats could have fun. They could play with the balls. They could socialize. They could have sex. They can do all kinds of stuff. And in that study, the rats would occasionally go and use the drugs. So they were occasional users, but not one rat overdosed and died.
Huh.
And here's his conclusion is that addiction has more to do with the cage you're in than the drug that you're taking. Because addiction starts when you can no longer bear being present in your life. So if we're talking about addiction, right? Like we medicate when we can no longer bear being present, when we can't handle the pain anymore. Well, now I have to do something about it. I have to medicate. And so to me, like, those rat stories are so vital to this conversation because again, it's like if you're in a cage all alone and you don't have any other connection, what is your option? You're hopeless. Life without connection is pointless. It's so unfulfilling. It's painful. But as soon as you put, it's honestly, connection is the reason why you and I aren't doing loads of drugs and alcohol. And it's the actual fact that it ruins my connections, right? Like I am protecting. I do all kinds of things. I abstain from all kinds of things to protect my connections in life. Well, if you don't have those connections, then all of a sudden I have to do all kinds of things to make up for the connection that I don't have. And so anyways, those two stories, when we're talking about suicide and hopelessness and depression, hope is one of the main drivers in life. I mean, think about how many people left Independence, Missouri, and went thousands of miles in wagon trains to come to Oregon and California for the hope of a new beginning, right? Like they said that you could, that there was a grave every, I think 50 yards. Like that's how much it was costing people to come. That's how many people were dying. And I'm talking about the Oregon Trail in case people were wondering, but it started in Independence, Missouri. And literally, I mean, they took wagon trains up and over the Rocky Mountains and forded them through rivers because of hope, right? Because there is a way, somehow, some way, if I can just get over here, life will be different. And when you remove hope from us, from people, there's no longer a reason, right? What is the motivation to live? And so, man, I think it's just so vital. Like people underestimate the power of having a purpose, the power of hope. Can I add one more thing to it? And I know like I've talked a lot, but I'm actually really passionate about this subject. The other piece that I think plays largely, and I'd love your opinion on this, largely into the purpose piece is that purpose comes through our responsibilities. And so it's like inside of carrying a load, inside of fulfilling my responsibilities, I have so much purpose. So like I've got a lot of purpose as a father, and I've got a lot of purpose as a husband, and I have a lot of purpose as a businessman and a minister. And I do think more than ever, kids are being born into homes where mom and dad don't actually have to have the kids. Like in the agricultural age, 200 years ago, kids were a blessing because you needed them, not just because of how they were designed, but they were a big benefit to the family. They would go and help plant and help collect and help make dinner. And a kid's got a sense of purpose at a really young age, right? Like I am a contributor to my family. Therefore, I feel confident about myself. I feel good about my contribution. But today in our society, as soon as the industrial age happened, kids became a burden. And I'm not saying that kids aren't valuable. I'm saying that's just what happened, right? When mom and dad have to go to work, what do I do with the kids? And there's not a real contribution in the same way that where I needed kids before. Every single day, they're helping me. Once they got, 5, 6, 7 years old, they were helping to contribute to the chores in the home, making the dinners, collecting the eggs, whatever, that led to a sense of community, family, purpose, of value. Therefore, they grew up with this inherent sense of purpose and value. Our kids today are growing up without that same sense of purpose and value. They have to go find it when they're older, right? So it's now like, I've got to go do something that makes me feel valuable, as opposed to growing up in the home, my family relied on me. Growing up, I did all kinds of things that built confidence, because confidence is built through competencies, right? I did all these things that I built confidence. And so I think a lot of men, especially on top of that, you add the incredible amount of fatherlessness that we have in today's society, right? We're the most fatherless generation that's ever been alive, where our dads aren't at home because they're at war. No, they're just not at home. And so you have all these kids growing up without a guide to help them grab a hold of their purpose at a young age. So I really do think like the pandemic, the epidemic of hopelessness, purposeless, uh, poor emotional health is coming from the way that we do family, the way that we do life, the way that our society is being formed today. And by the time guys hit our age, man, they've spent so much time trying to find a sense of purpose, trying to find a sense of peace, trying to find hope, so much hopelessness, so many broken relationships that it feels like it's impossible. So I love what you guys are doing. I love the like pulling people, bringing the awareness, pulling people back into like, listen, this isn't actually rocket science. It's not that hard. It's doing the small things every single day that makes you feel proud of yourself. It's building connections that you want to protect. And so, man, what am I missing? Like, what else are you guys doing to add to this?
Man, yeah, I think just to piggyback on what you're saying, that connection is it's so vital.
Yeah.
This was crazy. I mean, Yale even just did a study on this last year. It got published, Yale. And they said their conclusion is that church attendance is the best form of alcohol prevention, or the prevention of alcoholism and depression. So church attendance is the best form of community. That's what Yale ended up concluding, because people who attend church regularly are less likely to struggle with drug addiction, porn addiction, self-harm, anxiety, and depression, and suicidal ideation, which is so crazy. So, that's something that we're trying to combat even in our home, is not just church attendance, but the community within our own home. I've got 4 daughters, and one thing that we practice in our home is Shabbat dinners. And I think that that's such a memorable thing that they're never going to forget.
Wow. Explain that.
So on Friday nights, we're always at the table together. We have at least one meal a day together, all at the table. But on Friday nights, it's more of a special dinner. So it's like a Sabbath Shabbat dinner where we get the candles out, we get the Polaroid camera out, and we take a picture together as a family. So it's either during dinner, before dinner, or after dinner when we're playing board games or something like that, or if it's a movie night after the dinner. But we put the Polaroid in a box, and we have the Shabbat box. So we have hundreds of pictures of our families together, just these memorable photos, funny pictures, all sorts of stuff, so that when they're older, they can remember, like, I grew up in this family that gathered together around the table. We looked at each other. We laughed together at the table. And these are kind of more fancy dinners. And, for parents that are like, how in the world do I do that? I'm like a mom or dad of all, like, this huge family. I've got an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 2-month-old. So it's not like this super formal, awesome thing. Sometimes it's a 15-minute dinner, then all the kids want to run out of the table and go play. But they remember, like, this is the candlelit dinner night. This is the nicer night. Dad's going to lay hands and pray over all of us one by one.
Wow.
He's going to pray over mommy. And there's going to be a table blessing this night. Like, this is more special. So it's like that. Everyone loves, most people love the feeling of Thanksgiving if you have a healthy family. But that feeling of Thanksgiving and Christmas, like that, the magic of Christmas, a lot of it's like always the gathering around the table. And we experience that on a weekly basis. And I've seen so much more health in our family, healthy communication in our family because of the way we gather together. So I think, just for people listening, that's so important for you. If you're not in community, find it. Or if you have friends that, you've been having the armor up for a while, break through the armor, man.
Yeah.
Like, I have this friend, you probably know him, Gabriel Wilson. Do you remember Gabe Wilson?
Yes, he's awesome.
So Gabriel, he's like my covenant brother, man. He's one of my best friends. And we're so different. Like, we dress different. He's into music. I stink at music. Like, we're just the most polar opposite people. And we became so close somehow. And I remember he just asked me one day, he's like, I just always open up to you. You never open up to me. What's your deal? So I said, well, let's schedule it. because I knew it's going to be a mess. I sat down in his music studio on his couch, and it was just, I got a tissue box and I just told him about who I am, my life, my childhood, stuff I've gone through, traumas that I've seen. Like, here's who I am. And man, it's just, our friendship is so awesome. We're there for each other as brothers whenever something's going on, you know? So I think men out there, I think if there's assignments per podcast, I would give you that, is find a healthy community. I mean, even it's not just the Bible that tells you to do it. Yale is telling you to do it. Like, it's proven, man.
It's true.
Find people that will hear you and love you and listen to you and help you in your journey. And, if you're not connected with your church, get connected. If you're not connected with your spouse, your wife, confess, like, get connected to her.
Get connected.
Know her and let her know you. Stop hiding. Because that is step one to finding healing and wholeness, is being open and being real.
I love it so much. Dude, the Shabbat dinner that you're doing with your family is so cool. And I love that you're doing when they're so young. Like, that's really awesome, man. I just have so much respect for that. I'm probably going to steal that from you and do it as well. That's such a good idea. Yeah. That's what makes family is the traditions and the connection that we have, right? Like, that's what's going to make you guys such a tight knit family growing up. So good on you, man. Listen, I want people to go get your book. The book is called Stay Here. And how can they also get, like, if people are struggling with suicide, and like, what's the best way for them to stay in contact with you and get help?
Yeah, I would just say, for any of those things, just go to our website. So it's www.stayhere.live. So it's stayhere.live. On the website, you can find the book. There'll be like a pop-up. And then there's also a pop-up if you need somebody to talk to. So we partner with Christian Hope coaches 24/7. So it's not just like the 988 chat line. These are people who are going to pray for you. And that's a 24/7 line that we are partnering with on our website. It's awesome. And then we also are partnering with BetterHelp. So if you need free therapy and you can't afford therapy, BetterHelp has donated over $1 million in therapy to our organization to give away. So that's on our website. You can access that. Just, there's a tab that says free therapy, and you can have therapy from your home. And then BetterHelp also has faithful counseling. So if you want to do Christian therapy, we totally recommend it. We love faithful counseling. They're amazing. So that's an option for you on our website for free. So all of our resources are free, except for clothing. We don't give away free clothes. We have awesome merch and the book's not free. So you got to buy those, but everything else, it's free. It's too urgent of a thing to charge people for mental health care. I mean, it should be. I wish it was free for everybody. Yeah. So we're really grateful for some of our friends and partners who are making that possible.
That's incredible, Jacob. Really is. I mean, to partner with BetterHelp and to get that kind of support from them is unheard of. So listen, if you're struggling with hopelessness, depression, suicide, don't wait. Don't think, man, somehow it's just going to go away. Like, why not just stop what you're doing right now and reach out and grab onto hope? We've all been there. We've all been in a place where we felt desperate. We felt hopeless and where we didn't want to reach out. But today is an awesome day for you to stop what you're doing and to just grab onto those free resources. Grab the book, go get some counseling, some therapy, or just get some prayer. Reach out to that hotline and get some prayer, and start the journey of rebuilding hope, and then honestly rebuilding some healthy habits in your life that lead to a life of wholeness and hope and peace. So, Jacob, thank you so much for coming on today, man. I love what you're doing. I really appreciate you.
It's an honor to be here.
Yeah,
love what you guys are doing too.
Thank you. BraveCo men, hopefully you enjoyed this podcast episode. If it really touched you, would you share it with a friend? Go ahead and comment and subscribe, and let us know like how this is impacting you and where you're at in your journey. But otherwise, stay brave this week, men. We will see you next week.